The most dangerous fire is the one that makes no sound. Sometimes God doesn't extinguish the fire. He hides it. You pray and feel nothing. You sing and heaven stays silent. And your heart begins to wonder, is it over? But what if what feels like distance is actually God testing you through silence? What you call coldness, heaven might be calling purification. Because God's fire doesn't disappear, it withdraws to see who keeps going even when they can't feel it. While many give up when emotion fades, a few remain. And those few are the ones heaven calls chosen. Today, you're going to uncover a mystery few dare to talk about, how the called and the chosen respond to the flame Jesus lights within every heart. So grab a notebook and pen, because every insight from this video will be essential for the growth of your spiritual life. You say the fire has gone out, but God calls it a hidden ember. Sometimes God's silence isn't absence, it's a test. He watches to see if you still seek Him when you feel nothing, if you keep tending the altar even when your heart feels dry. The chosen are forged in these quiet hours, when the heart burns softly but still burns. Heaven isn't moved by those who shout, "I feel it," but it rejoices in those who whisper, "I'm still here." When the light fades on the outside, God ignites something within. The truest fire doesn't make noise, it purifies in silence. That's how the chosen learn that faith isn't about feeling, it's about staying. Discouragement tries to blow out the ashes, but God breathes back with patience. Every dry prayer is a breath, every weary song a spark. And suddenly, what looked like the end starts to glow again. Because where there's faithfulness, there's fuel. And where there's an altar, there's flame. So before you say, "It's over," look again. The ember is still alive. The God who called you hasn't given up. He simply led you into a fire that matures. The chosen don't always blaze, but they never stop burning. And that's what hell fears most, an ember that refuses to die, even in silence. Have you ever felt like a hidden ember? Share your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. The called remember God when the fire burns bright. The chosen seek Him when only ashes remain. That first love never disappears. It hides beneath routine, waiting to be remembered. Returning to that place is more than nostalgia. It's reliving the moment heaven found you. That's where the flame begins to breathe again. Jesus said, "Many are called, but few are chosen." And the chosen are those who come back. Even wounded, they return to the place where they first heard His voice. They open the worn pages, sing the old songs, and recall the touch that lifted them from the ground. Because love that began in tears only dies when gratitude does. The called live off emotion, but the chosen live off memory and long for constant communion with Jesus. When they remember what God has done, their hearts warm again. That's how the Spirit rekindles sleeping embers, not with noise, but with renewal that heals. And when the heart starts to burn again, the altar rebuilds itself within the soul. That first love is the seal of the chosen. It's the fire that keeps burning even when no one understands it. Maybe today you feel nothing, but He's still there, waiting for you to remember. Because those truly chosen never forget the voice that called them. And when memory becomes prayer, heaven answers with fire once more. The called often start strong, but lose their way when the fire seems to fade. The chosen, however, they learn the rhythm of the flame. They know the altar doesn't stand on grand events, but on small, quiet, daily steps. Reading a psalm at dawn, praying before sleep, giving thanks in the middle of pain. This steady rhythm is the heartbeat of the Spirit. Jesus warned us, many are called, but few are chosen. And those few understand that fire doesn't depend on emotion, but on discipline. The chosen turn faith into routine, and routine into intimacy. While the world chases feelings, they simply remain. In that quiet faithfulness, God's fire never goes out. The called crave intensity. The chosen seek depth. They don't live off spiritual highs, they grow roots. The flame that sustains them isn't instant, it's cultivated. Every prayer, every fast, Every act of love becomes sacred wood, and even when time tries to cool the heart, the habit of surrender sets everything ablaze again. The rhythm of the chosen is never rushed, it's constant. They understand that God's fire isn't a show, it's a process, and it's in that process that He separates the many from the few. The called get excited, the chosen mature, because the real fire isn't the one that impresses, it's the one that keeps burning long after all the others have gone out. The cold wind doesn't come screaming, it comes disguised. Distractions, comparisons, voices that drain the soul. The called get carried away, but the chosen recognize this wind isn't from God. They learn to protect the altar within, to quiet the noise that tries to smother the flame. Because what kills the fire isn't hell, it's the clutter inside the heart. Jesus spoke of the many called and the few chosen. The chosen are the ones who turn off the world to hear the whisper of the Spirit. They trade notifications for prayer, exhaustion for worship. They understand that silence isn't emptiness, it's space for the fire to breathe. God's presence doesn't shout, it reveals itself when everything else goes still. The called live distracted, always chasing something new. But the chosen would rather lose the noise of the world than lose the voice of God. They declutter their souls, remove what cools them down, and protect what still burns. Every choice is an ember being preserved. Every surrender, a breath that keeps the altar alive. The faith of the chosen is simple but strong. They cut through the cold winds of anxiety, comparison, and empty talk, because they know the flame dies quickly when the heart is divided. In the end, God isn't looking for those who feel deeply, but for those who guard what little remains. And that's why so few are chosen, because few remain faithful when the wind tries to put everything out.
An ember alone will always die out. That's why the called grow cold so quickly. They walk alone, trying to reignite what only the body can keep alive. But the chosen understand, communion is fuel. When two embers draw near, the fire grows. When hungry hearts unite, heaven descends. God never wanted individual altars. He wanted hearts burning together, sustaining one another. As Jesus declared in Matthew 22:14, the chosen are the ones who don't walk alone. They pray together, weep together, celebrate together. Fellowship isn't just company. It's a covenant of faith that hell can't stand. Because when one person's fire merges with another's, the enemy loses his grip. The called run when they're hurt, but the chosen stay even when it hurts. They know that loving others is how you protect the shared altar. Every hug is a flame. Every act of forgiveness a new spark. When one stumbles, the other breathes life back into the fire. And it's within this sacred rhythm that the Spirit keeps alive what time tried to extinguish. The fellowship of the chosen isn't loud, it's deep. They don't gather out of habit, but out of hunger. Fire thrives where there's unity. So if your altar feels cold today, maybe it's because you've been trying to burn alone. The called isolate themselves, the chosen gather. And that's why, among the many, only a few keep burning until the very end. Serving was never meant to be glamorous. It was always meant to be a cross. That's why the called lose heart when the applause fades. But the chosen, they keep going even when no one's watching. They know the fire grows when the focus shifts away from self. Visiting, comforting, feeding, teaching. Each simple act is another log laid on God's altar. Service is the flame of the humble. Jesus made it clear when he spoke about the called and the chosen, and it's through service that the difference becomes visible. The called seek position, the chosen seek purpose. The called crave recognition, the chosen crave his presence. They know God's fire doesn't feed on fame, but on surrender. The emptier they become, the stronger the Spirit's wind blows. Service is the secret of the altar that never burns out. The chosen wash unseen feet, pray for those who wound them, and help without expecting anything back. While the world runs toward the spotlight, they run toward the secret place. Because the real fire of God ignites in kitchens, hospitals, alleyways, and weary hearts. That's where grace finds room to shine. The chosen have discovered that service isn't loss, it's the pathway to pure fire. When they forget themselves, God remembers them. When they pour out, God fills them up. And in the end, they realize the fire they rekindled in others has also set their own hearts ablaze. That's why so few are chosen, because so few are still willing to serve when the stage goes dark. There are pains God doesn't explain. He uses them. The called complain when suffering comes, but the chosen ask, Lord, what are you trying to teach me through this? Because some wounds don't kill, they purify. Pain is the fire God lights to reveal what's real. And what remains after the fire is pure gold, mature faith, and a surrendered heart. In Jesus' words about the few who are chosen, they are the ones who remain when pain becomes an altar. They don't run from the cross, they embrace it. They know suffering isn't punishment, it's refinement. God turns tears into fuel and transforms brokenness into presence. Every tear is an ember being reignited. While the called seek comfort, the chosen seek purpose. They understand that the desert is the Spirit's classroom. It's there, on the cracked ground of the soul, that heaven teaches perseverance. The fire born from pain isn't impulsive, it's eternal. It doesn't shine for vanity, it burns as testimony. Those who weep before God discover a secret. The fire of pain is the hardest to extinguish. When the heart breaks, the spirit finds room to breathe. The chosen aren't the ones who escape suffering, they're the ones who let God rekindle the flame through it. Because in the end, it's the broken who burn the brightest. The fire has returned, though maybe you haven't noticed it yet. It doesn't arrive with noise, it comes with peace. The called look for grand signs, but the chosen recognize God in the small shifts, a renewed desire to pray, a forgiveness that once felt impossible, a joy that rises without reason. That's how heaven rekindles hearts, quietly, simply, deeply. There's a great difference between many are called but few are chosen. The chosen don't need dramatic displays to know God is moving. They see the fire in subtle gestures, in tears that now heal, and smiles that return after pain. The Spirit blows wherever He wills, and the chosen have learned to recognize Him even in a gentle breeze. The called chase emotion, the chosen seek transformation. They know the real sign isn't goosebumps, it's a changed heart. To love the one who once hurt you, to obey when it cost you, to hunger for holiness. These are the traces of the fire that's come back. The altar is burning again, even if no one saw the exact moment it happened. God's fire doesn't put on a show, it writes a story. It doesn't light up the whole horizon, just the next step. And while the world demands proof of His presence, the chosen simply keep walking by faith, because what God has rekindled inside them is enough to outlast any darkness. That's the mark of the few who keep burning until the end. Guarding the altar of the heart is a practice reserved for the few. The called know how to reignite the flame, but the chosen know how to keep it burning. They understand that God's fire doesn't depend on a moment. It depends on constant vigilance. Guarding the altar means tending to your soul when no one's watching, protecting what the Spirit has ignited so that the winds of the world don't blow it out. The chosen are those who turn faithfulness into habit. They examine their hearts daily, what's grown cold, what needs new wood, where pride tried to slip in. God's presence doesn't dwell in distracted hearts, but in altars that are watched over. And the fire remains wherever there is care. The called grow weary of repetition, but the chosen celebrate devotion. They know that keeping the altar alive takes rhythm, praying even when there's no answer, giving thanks without a reason, staying steady even when there's no feeling. Each small act is an invisible guard against spiritual coldness. The flame doesn't die from lack of emotion, but from lack of attention.
Guarding the altar is the secret of those who finish the journey with their fire still burning. That's why so few are chosen, because so few remain faithful until the end. The called can start the fire. The chosen learn to preserve it. And as long as there's a heart willing to tend the flame, the God who lit it will keep breathing life into it for all eternity. You know that moment when everything looks the same, yet something inside you feels different? That's the fire returning, quiet, steady, unstoppable. It doesn't come to impress you, it comes to sustain you. If this message has lit something within you, take a second. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like, not out of habit, but as your way of saying, I still believe. Share this video with someone who's trying to understand God's silence, because what may look like the end to them might actually be the beginning of rekindling. And if this fire reached you today, the next video will reveal who the chosen of Jesus truly are, because God's fire never ends. It simply keeps burning in the lives of his chosen ones. And sometimes, silence is the sound of the fire growing.